Papua New Guinea is still reeling from the effects of the fallout of bad publicity on the rape incident along the Kokoda Trail involving an American female. Worse, the people who live along the trail have been made to look bad. Adventure Kokoda's Charles Lynn was today on the defensive of the people, describing them as very peaceful. Thank you, Charlie, for talking to us. Adventure Kokoda, you're associated with, have been for many, many years, and right now, today, Papua New Guinea is on the world news. Not for the right reasons. Tell us what happened at Kokoda.
Well, we had a couple of trekkers arrived here to trek across the Kokoda Trail, which is not unusual, but it is unusual for people to want to trek across the Kokoda Trail in the wet season. So not many come. But you require a trek permit, so they had to go to the Kokoda Track Authority to get a permit. The authority wouldn't issue them with a permit unless they had a guide. They said they had a guide. They lied. They didn't. They went up to the Sageri Lodge. When they got there, the people at Sageri Lodge, who look after all of our logistics, found that they had no gear, they had no equipment. And so they advised them that they would need proper clothing, proper boots and so forth. They said no, they'd had experienced trekking and they knew what they're on about. So they set off the next morning. They didn't have trekking boots, they didn't have proper clothing, they had insufficient food, they only had a few snacks. Apparently they didn't have a torch, they didn't have a knife, they didn't have lighters, they had nothing. They were totally unprepared, but more importantly, they said they'd go without a guide. Now, nobody treks along the Kokoda Trail, or anywhere in the bush in Papua New Guinea for that matter, without a guide. The guides are the masters of their environment.
Yeah. Were they real? Were they real people?
They didn't even have a map. They had an old map that they'd torn out of a brochure. And so when they were strongly advised to get a guide. Now, in the Lonely Planet guide that they had, there's a lot of advice here about not trekking alone, getting a guide, not trekking in small groups and so forth. So they refused to have a guide. The only deduction I can make from that is that they wanted something to happen, because we now know that one of them is a celebrity TV star.
Something did happen.
Yeah, and they wanted to escape from that and tell their story, and maybe that was their role, and maybe what happened got out of control. I don't know.
So was there a rape?
Well, one has to question that at this stage, because she would not release the doctor's report. What I do know is I've heard that they picked up a guide at Iori Baiwa finally, because they knew they weren't going to make it, and that he carried for them for 1 to 2 days, and then he paid him 10 kina. So he would have been very angry, because the going rate is 60 kina plus their food, plus a sleeping bag and mat and all that sort of stuff. So they had nothing. So he would have felt that he'd been robbed by these two. They then apparently picked up another couple, a married couple. I haven't verified that yet. And I believe that by the time they got to crossing 1, that the couple felt that they were not going to get paid the proper amount. And so if there was a robbery, that's where it took place. According to the couple, which is only second-hand information, you'd have to have great suspicion as to whether there was a rape. But what's more important is that they claimed that they were stripped virtually naked, that they took their shoes, they took all their clothes, they took all their gear, their camera, everything else, and that meant they had to walk. Now, I know that area very well. It's 15.5 kilometres over very rugged terrain.
And they walk naked there without shoes?
Without shoes. Now, look, a white person can't walk without shoes. I've done the trek 79 times, and I reckon it'd take me about a week in bare feet. But more importantly, John, their feet would have been really badly lacerated. Now, I've seen the photograph in the helicopter, and the guy is wearing sandals, and there's not even a Band-Aid.
So he didn't go barefoot then?
Well,
so obviously, Charles, we know what happened. There's a reported rape incident that's now gone worldwide. Yes. Papua New Guinea's got a bad name. Were these two people, were they here to create something and sell a story overseas? What were they here for?
That's the only conclusion I can come to, John, because they deliberately did everything wrong. It's not as if they weren't advised or they were ignorant. There's no excuse for ignorance, but they were personally advised by 2 different people, plus the Lonely Planet Guide. All the warnings are there, plus the Kokoda Track Authority. So they deliberately were unprepared And the only conclusion I can make is that they wanted something to happen that they could escape from and perhaps sell their story. Because the other thing that is interesting is that they didn't pay at the lodge when they left. They said they'd pay when they get back. And then they bargained the price down. It's a very cheap lodge anyway, but they bargained the price down further because they were short of money.
A lot of money that was stolen too.
Then all of a sudden comes out in the story that they had 15,000 kina. Now, if I had 15,000 kina, that would pay for 20 trekkers plus about 35 guides and carriers for the whole way. That's what 15,000 kina buys you across the Kokoda Trail. 15,000 kina for two people? No. Would anybody carry that amount of money in Papua New Guinea in the bush without a guide?
No.
You can't be that stupid. No. I don't know of anybody that's stupid.
All right. Well, they came here. They created a story. I suppose they wanted to sell it, whatever they wanted to do back home. But in the process, they gave us a terrible name.
Not only did they give you this is the worst international publicity Papua New Guinea has ever had. You know, they've created, you know, an image of cannibals and black savages and white women being raped. I mean, it's just grist to the mill for the type of tabloids like The Sun. And it's gone right round the world. The Australian media, to their great credit, has not touched this.
Yeah, I was a
they
bit surprised
obviously
about
spelt
that.
a rat. I'm pleased to see that the PNG media have come out in force. They're united on it to get to the bottom of this story. Because the other thing you should consider is that they're a day behind their schedule. If they were crossing one on the date that when the attack happened, they were never going to make Kokoda in time to catch the plane to make their connecting flight back to Australia. So by engineering an emergency, the Kokoda Track Authority paid about 8,000 kina for a helicopter to evacuate them, so they got a free ride, and they didn't charge them. So the situation you've got right now is that you've got these two pretenders have come in here. They've sullied your name internationally. They've stolen an 8,000 kina helicopter ride. And you have got two people who must be presumed to be innocent until they're guilty, who I don't think have any legal representation. And I know these people along the trail. I've been carried off the trail 3 times over 25 years. I know the care and the compassion that these people give. And they're committed Christians, they're Seventh-day Adventists, they don't drink alcohol, they're vegetarian. Cannibals are not vegetarians, you know, so...
And rape would be the worst thing for these people.
Yeah, so look, my concern is the welfare of these two people, because I think they're international victims. Everybody in PNG wants to hang them because they say they're at fault, but it's not their fault. It's these two people who should not have been allowed out of the country. They should have taken their passports, they should have got the medical records, and then they should have cross-examined them before and got statements before they left.
Okay.
Now,
all right.
We've got to get to the bottom of that yet.
Sure. Charles, damage done, problems out there. It's an experience. What do we need to do to prepare ourselves?
Well, look,
as a country, and particularly you as well.
Yes, well, look, to my mind, you've got the right bloke in the right job at the right time. When I heard that Mr. Justin Tachenko had been appointed tourism minister, I thought that's the best thing that's happened for tourism in the 25 years I've been involved. He actually trekked with me in 1996, so he knows the value of it.
Yes.
He knows what tourism means. He's an entrepreneur. He's made things happen, and he's on this case. And I'm giving him as much advice as I can give him. Other people are giving him advice. He's listening with 2 ears, and I'm expecting that he's an action man, that we'll work together with him to, you know, restore the reputation.
Okay, all right. We'll see what happens and take it from there.
Well, thank you, John, and thank you for your interest in this.
Okay, thank you for talking to us.
Thank you, thank you.
Charles Lynn of Adventure Kokoda. Koitaki Farm outside Port Moresby eyes even greener pastures. That's after the break.